Hi everyone, Phil from Tech for Techs here. Today we're going to be looking at this from Tecware. It's an RGB mechanical keyboard. It's a 10 keyless version, which means it hasn't got the number pad on the side. It's full RGB and it's got a recommended retail price of just under 55 UK pounds. And we've also got links in description if you are interested. Okay, as you can see, we've got the Tecware Phantom 87 RGB mechanical keyboard. It doesn't say 87 on it because it's basically got 87 keys. It doesn't mention that on the front, but basically it's classed as a 10 keyless, which basically means you're missing the number pad on the side there, because you obviously 1 to 0, 1 to 10 is missing. So it gives you a rough idea. It doesn't say much on the front of the box other than it's got RGB on there. I'm hoping that's RGB. You can customize the colours whatever you want, and it's not just stripes as you're getting some. It's got dust-proof switches and modular design. On the back of the box, you can see it says fully customizable 16.8 million RGB backlight, so that's good. I'm not a fan of these ones what are just stripes across. It looks like the RGB, but they're more like 5 colours in all honesty, in a set pattern. It's modular mechanical switches on there. This one is actually a red switches, but they do have a red, brown and blue available. And it's laser engraved ABS keycaps, which is pretty good, which should mean that the keys or the writing on the keys doesn't wear out, and you can actually see the colours visible through the keys and not just around the surround. It's got full N key rollover, gold-plated USB connector. Well, that really makes much of a difference in all honesty. And anti-slip rubber feet. But we'll have a look at this and see what it's like. Okay, so this is what you get in the box. You've got 4 switches, so you've got replacement switches there if you ever need them for any reason, which is always an advantage. So you can swap those out if you're wanting to. They are red OUTEMU switches, so that's pretty good, which is pretty standard on most keyboards of this price range. You can have obviously cherry ones as well. There's also gratin ones out there. A lot of people don't notice the difference between them, some do, but cherry you tend to find are on your more premium models, so these are generally a good quality switch, which should last you a good while, obviously depending on how you're using it. You've also got a keycap remover there. I have noticed there is another keycap remover on the bottom or the base of the keyboard. We'll look at that in a few seconds. But let's have a look at the keyboard itself. So the cabling is braided. It's a nice soft cable. It's roughly around about 2 meters long. It goes from the bottom of the keyboard, and you can actually adjust the cable where it comes out from the bottom through this channeling. So you want it coming out the left side, the right side or the center, you can do so. That's totally up to you, which is an advantage. The end of the cable with the USB on does have a cap, when the cap actually attaches to the cable, so when you take the cap off you don't lose the cap because it stays attached to it. Not sure if that's such a needed thing, but it's a nice thing to have. It saves you losing your cap if for any reason you are unplugging it all the time and you want to keep it clean. It is gold plated, or gold coloured, one or the other. I think they say it's gold plated, which okay is nice, but it's, in all honesty it's not really going to affect too much. The speed is set because it's a USB 2 connection, so it'll only go at USB 2 speed, so it doesn't matter if gold connects and so forth, transfers stuff faster or whatever, it's still only going to go at USB 2 speeds. Let's have a look what else we've got on the bottom while we're under here. Okay, we've got that keycap remover, which is in there, it clips in. You have got 4 rubber feet on the bottom. You've also got these ones what flip out, which will obviously allow you to put a tilt on the keyboard, which have also got rubber feet on, which should stop it sliding about. Let's have a quick test. Yeah, I can push that keyboard and shake my desk rather than moving the keyboard, so that's a good sign. And again, when those are down, I'm guessing it's going to be the same. Yeah, that grips very well. The chance that's going to slide is very unlikely. You'll have to get a wrecking ball on that to get it to move. So that's pretty good. So there's nothing worse having a keyboard which is good build and it just slides all over your desk. So that's another advantage. So the keys should just come off. Let's have a look if they do. So let's pull it off. These are red switches, as we said. So you've got your switches there. You can see clearly. Let's just zoom you in and focus. There you go. So you can see the switch there. It's pretty straightforward. But the actual keycaps look pretty good themselves as well. So if you look at the keycap, it looks like it's what the class as a double coating. So you've got the actual main plastic there, and then it's got like a coating of a clear plastic on the inside, which is obviously where the light shines through and is able to shine through the letter, and so that makes it pretty strong and durable and looks good at the same time. Obviously, to push the keys back on, you just put them back on. This is a US keyboard, but the box is a UK keyboard. This is just a demo version they've sent us, or a sample one. It happens a lot of times in review samples. They usually send out a US or a European version rather than the UK one, but if you're buying in the UK, it should be a UK keyboard, obviously, if it's been sold as a UK keyboard. The retail price on this, as we said, is roughly 55 quid, so that's pretty good. The keyboard, let's have a look at the space bar. So as you can see, the space bar will just pull off. Obviously, you can use your keycap remove if you really want to. And a really good thing on this is obviously you can see your switch in the middle, but on each side you've got a stabilizer, which will help the key, or at least the space key, as well as the other keys on the keyboard. A good idea if I put it on the right way around, wouldn't it? Stops them rocking left to right. So your big keys, obviously, if there was just one switch in the middle, it'll go all over the place, which you can find on a lot of cheaper keyboards. Instead of having these stabilizers at each end, it has like a metal bar going across, which you would get in a normal keyboard. So it's sort of like a cross between a mechanical keyboard and a traditional keyboard in one, just to stabilise the keys. But this has got proper stabilisers, a bit like fake switches on either side, which will keep it nice and steady, and which will also make it sound a lot more like the other keys on the keyboard. And that's going to be the same, I'm guessing, for stuff like the enter and the shift key and so forth. Let's use the keycap remover and just pull it off. Yeah, so you can see the two stabilisers there and the switch in the middle, so that is very good. Let's plug this in so you can see what it looks like. So I haven't got any software installed or anything, so I'm just plugging it in basically so you can see. So straight away it's lit up red, which is pretty good, so that's pretty straightforward. One thing to notice is the actual PCB inside is fiberglass, and this area here, which is under where the keys are around, that is actually aluminium. The base does feel like it's a plastic though, but again, it's very sturdy. You're really gonna have to give it some hammer to break that, so it should last you a good while, fingers crossed. Okay, so as you can see, I've got the keyboard plugged in. You can see it lit up, looks fairly bright. I did find it's not the brightest lights I've seen, but it's bright enough, especially if you've got it in a dark room. I've turned all the lights off in the office at the moment, so you can actually see what it actually looks like. And as you can see, it stands out pretty nicely. You can change different effects and so forth for the lighting using the keyboard. You can hold down this key here. Hold down the function key and then choose your different keys here to give you different effects. But you can do all this through the software as well. You can also change the brightness and everything on there. You can even set up macros and so forth if you wanted on there. The software will show you a bit more depth in that in a few minutes on a screen capture, so you can see a lot better. But in basics, you can go in the software, you can change the lighting effects. For example, you've got the horizontal wave, pulse wave, hurricane, breathing, swirl, waterfall, quite a few different things in here. Vortex, there's probably about 20 or 30 different ones in there. You can change the brightness and the speed of the effects. That's on the brightest setting at the moment for that one. And you can choose it multicolour or select individual colours to do it if you're wanting. So you've got all these different effects on there, which is pretty good. There's quite a lot you can do. Take a closer look at the actual software. First of all, to install it, you can download the program from their website, which is basically tecware.co/phantom, or at least it is in the UK. It may slightly be a different website depending on where you are in the world, but I'm pretty sure you'll be able to find your way if you go to tecware.co. The file is a WinRAR file or a RAR file, which means you will have to install WinRAR on your computer, which is basically a compression tool which decompresses the file so you can actually install it. So if you're stuck and not sure why the RAR file won't open, it means you need some form of RAR based unzipping program, WinRAR being the most popular or common, what does the RAR type files. You may find other unzipping programs may work, but the one built into Windows as standard does not. So let's get into the actual program. Once you've installed it, the program will work as long as you've got your keyboard plugged in. If it's not plugged in, it won't open up. But this is the screen you get. Basically, it says LED editing mode is enabled or disabled, so you have to obviously choose enabled if you want to edit it. You've got an option at top for macro, so if you click on there you can create a macro name, so we'll call it new one, which is there, and then we can record the macro, so I'll just say 1 2 3 4 5 6, but you can change the order of everything if you're wanting to. But that again is up to you. If you're not sure what a macro is, I suggest you look it up online. But the basics of a macro is by pressing one key on your keyboard, you can get the keyboard to basically type out a command, or if you're in a certain game, it'll launch loads of specific skills all at the same time, or with set times between each one, popular for MMO games and stuff like that. Again, macros maybe not something you need to do, but that's up to you. Then you can click on the key on the keyboard you want. So let's just say let's have a look. So the insert key, you can assign a new key to it if you want to. You can assign the macro we've just created to it if you want to, or even a function to run something like your browser stop, back, calculator, email, and so forth. Obviously, if you choose an email or something like that, you need to make sure it's set as the correct program in your default settings in Windows, otherwise it will open the wrong thing up. So that's there. You've got USB report rate at the bottom. You've also got restore defaults, apply, cancel, OK. Also at the top you've got profile 1, 2 and 3. That allows you to set the colours and the macros up slightly different depending on what games you're playing. So if you prefer the keyboard set up one way, you can basically set it up for profile 1, and if you want it set up a different way for playing a specific game, you can set profile 2 up and then profile 3 for photo editing or something like that. Now if you want to change the RGB lights, it's basically pretty simple. You just click where it says enabled. Do you want to save the settings? I'm going to press no for now. And normally it'll come on in these multicoloured styles. You've got quite a few different options, so you can see horizontal wave. You can choose multicolour, so if you untick that you can then choose a specific colour, so it just shows you that specific colour. You do have more, you can pick pretty much any colour you want. Believe it or not, black doesn't work, so, or at least I don't see anything happening on the keyboard, which I'm not surprised, to be honest, but I'm surprised it's an option. You've also got brightness, speed, so if you want the effect to go a lot slower, you can change the speed, and you can even change the direction the effect goes in, depending on how you want it. A few other effects, you've got pulse wave, breathing, you've got waterfall, vortex, and you've even got custom, so you can specifically set keys to be a certain colour. So if you wanted all your function keys to be yellow, you can basically select each of your function key, turn it yellow, and then you wanted your WAS and D keys, which you usually use for obviously movement in games, green, you can paint them green, and so forth. You can do that with any key on the keyboard. You can have every single key a slightly different colour if you really wanted to, so that's pretty good. And then you've got an eraser tool to cancel out what you've just done, so that's pretty good. So in conclusion, is it any good? Is it worth buying? Well, it's a £55 keyboard. It's mechanical. There are a few variations. You can get a UK style, US, different switches and stuff. But it seems to get every feature you probably want in it. Obviously, it's a 10 keyless. Some people call them tankless. It's actually 10 keyless. But basics is you just don't have that extra keypad on the side, so it makes it a bit more lightweight, portable, takes up less room on your desk, and in a lot of cases the number pad doesn't get used by most gamers. Again, I say most, you may be different than most people, but in most cases that's true. Let's start off with the downside. Well, the downside is there's a lot of competition out there. It doesn't come with a palm rest, but there is one which is purchasable separately, so that's sort of a positive and negative. So you're not paying for one if you don't want one, but you have to pay for one if you do, so it doesn't come with one for free. Another negative is the lighting on the keyboard. It's not the brightest in the world. You'll struggle to see it in a bright room and so forth. Don't get me wrong, if you're playing games at night in a dark room, yes, it'll look pretty good. And you've got a lot of features on there. You can even colour each individual key on the keyboard, which is a bonus. And then you've got all these different styles and so forth. In all honesty, in most cases though, when you're playing games, generally if you've got strobing lights on across your keyboard, it'll probably put you off more so. But I can see where the customizable bit where you can have specific keys as a specific colour being quite useful, and I must admit I have used that feature on other keyboards in the past, and just to obviously, if it is dark, it's easy to quickly see where your WASD key is and probably other commands you've set up for doing specific things in specific games. Another negative is the software that you download. First of all, it's zipped in a RAR file, so it means you've got to install a program, if you haven't already, to unzip that file, and then you've got to install the program itself, and it's a separate program for the keyboard than, let's just say, the mouse, if you were to buy the mouse. So it's not a combined program what does every single peripheral you do from the company, which can be a bit of a pain, especially if you're testing stuff like us. You've got to install a program for every single device you have, and then sooner or later you have around about 20 icons on a desktop and 20 different programs starting up when your machine does. Now, this is common with pretty much most manufacturers out there. Also, the software is obvious. It's been developed by a hardware engineer rather than a software engineer. Don't get me wrong, you can do everything you want on there, but it's not probably the most user-friendly, but it has got everything you should need there, as I said. But putting away the negatives, there is actually a lot of positives. First of all, you've got a keyboard which is mechanical for £55. It's got the good thing on the bottom where you can basically set the cable whichever side of the keyboard you want through the lanes on the bottom. So if you want your cable coming out the left side of the keyboard or the right or the middle, it will do that. Again, the lighting effects are good on there. As I said, not the brightest, but they are good. You've got plenty of different options, and you can purchase an extra wrist pad, if your palm pad, depending on what you want to call it, if you wish. The keyboard is also very sturdy. It's got that aluminium base to it. The bottom of the keyboard is plastic though, but it's quite sturdy. There's no flex in it when you try and do anything. The actual typing feels smooth and comfortable. Even the space and the larger keys are well supported by basically fake switches on either side. They call them stabilizers, so that makes sure that the keyboard or the keys on the keyboard don't rock and sound different to other keys, which again is another positive. So in final thoughts, would I buy this? Yeah, I probably would, as long as I wasn't wanting the brightest RGB lights out there. If they were to do a new revision of this keyboard and probably made the LED lights 50% brighter, then I think they would have a winning keyboard on their hands, especially if they could keep it for the same sort of price. So if I was to recommend one thing to them, and that would be the RGB lighting. The second would be the software, or at least make it easier to download. There's no mention of you needing WinRAR. A lot of people don't know what WinRAR is to unzip things, or other unzipping programs, so make things as simple for people as possible, and maybe a little bit of documentation within the software to tell them what does what and so forth, so it makes it a little bit less confusing for people. But saying that, I still recommend this keyboard, and if you team it up with other products, what we've reviewed from them, it would make a pretty good set. For example, the mouse we reviewed last week, as well as the case, and we've got a few other items we're going to be looking at over the next coming weeks. To be honest, it seems like a pretty good all-rounded brand at a very, very attractive price. So it'll be interesting to see how the company evolves over coming months and years.